Story 1. The Man with a Hat by Reddit user ImpossibleBrush7942. I had always been not so sure about the existence of spurts, but this is what confirmed it. I was around 8 or 9, a small girl. I started to see spurts or shadows of them, but this specific one has always been more relevant than the others. It was late at night and I was watching TV laying on my couch. My couch was against the wall, which was right next to a hallway. Just for a moment, I took my eyes off of the TV and looked to my left as I felt like I was being watched. I look over to see a tall man with a hat's shadow peering next to me. I jolted my head back to see nothing. I screamed for my mother and told her what I saw. She later called her now ex-boyfriend over to come check our house to make sure we were alone. A few years later, we had moved to a new house in a new town. I had forgotten all about the incident. About a year after living there, I was sitting on my couch, alone. My mom, sister, and stepdad were all in my parents' room at the end of the hallway. The way our living room was set up at the time, I had a clear view down the hallway. I was watching TikTok on my phone with the only light that was on being the hallway light. I look up from my phone and down the hallway to see a tall man with a hat's shadow. As I look, he rose up from the ground, and I swear he looked at me. He then went back into the ground. I paused, wondering if I was just imagining things. I ran down the hallway and slammed my parents' door open and told them about the incident, but nobody took it seriously. I haven't seen him since then, and I'm hoping that I don't. Story 2. A creepy whistling by Reddit user no_profile_8175. Me and my sister were outside at night with my 2 cats, and it was quite dark. We heard a whistling, and it seemed like it was pretty close. My cats also heard it and turned to it, and when it came again, they ran inside. We locked our doors but didn't really think much of it. But today my mom texted me about a week later and said that she heard it too when she was outside at night, and now I'm kind of scared of what it was. Our area also doesn't have birds or other animals that whistle like that, and even if we did, it sounded very much like human, and it wasn't like a bird singing cause it was changing notes. Story 3. Something Evil Sent to Get Me by Reddit user Hinstore17. I have never spoken of what happened to me as a child. It took over 40+ years to utter a word to another human being. Tonight is the first time I typed this out, so please bear with me. It will seem absolutely absurd, and I've felt all my life that not another living soul would ever believe me. How could anyone believe what I myself have questioned now for over 50 years? This happened to me. It is 100% true. It was sometime around 1971. It was midwinter on Long Island. My parents kept me upstairs in their bedroom as a baby, up until I was a toddler. Basically until I was old enough to be in a twin bed in my own room. They had their home built to specifications back in the 1950s. Of course, being who they were, they designed the entire second floor of the house to be their domain. When you reached the top of the stairs, it had a door. Opened, you walked into an open room with bookshelves on the entire back wall, and a bench sat to your left, sort of like a library area, where encyclopedias were kept and more. Walking through past the wall of books was their bedroom door, and the other door to the immediate left was my dad's office. Their bedroom was absolutely huge. When you walked in, their master bath and walk-in closet side were on the right wall, and it was a long wall with a big shelf between the 2 doorways which held their television set and clock radio. The back wall faced the backyard with a huge picture window in the center. This is exactly where my crib sat, directly in the middle of the window. I remember a lot of moments when I was a baby. I know it might sound weird, but it's something I retained. I can't remember what I had for lunch today, but I remember many things from my childhood. I literally recall being frustrated not being able to explain things sometimes. I must have been around 2 or 3 years old. I would wake up in the very early morning and go underneath the huge shade and look out the window. I can still recall how cold the glass felt to my little fingers and the smell and wetness from the condensation. I would retract my hands from the glass, make handprints. I would play and look at the fog low to the ground, look at the grass, the back shed, and my mother's purple lilacs. I was usually put to bed early. I remember this one particular night. The room was dark, only the moonlight from the window peered into my crib. I was on my back. Something woke me up in the darkness. I could hear glasses clinking and voices coming from downstairs. Loud voices and laughter. I was laid down facing my parents' walk-in closet. The door was usually closed. This night, it was left ajar. I was so little. I was a baby, a toddler, helpless. I awoke and my little eyes opened. The moonbeam peered through the glass as the shade wasn't quite all the way down. I was suddenly afraid. Very afraid. I remember this. Still to this day. I don't understand or know how or why, but I do. Suddenly, a hand appeared out of the darkness. The more it moved towards me, the more the light of the moon exposed this very large malformed hand. It wasn't normal. It had super long fingers with these wobbly, oversized knuckles. The skin was now what I came to know as the color green. Or maybe the moonlight gave it that appearance. I'll never know, but I was terrified. It moved and I couldn't see anything behind it. Not a body or a face, but I didn't want to see. I was petrified into silence and it moved closer. It had nails with what now I would perceive to be blood all over them because the nails appeared to me in color. What I learned later is red. My mouth moved, but nothing came out. Until finally, I heard my own voice. I somehow knew I had to scream as loud as I could. They had to hear me. Please hear me. Please hurry. Now, I didn't know these words probably, but as a small child I knew I needed them lights on, the door to open, and big people to come help me. It drew closer. It couldn't have been more than 2 feet away at this point. I heard what I now would describe as a low hum like radio waves. No breathing or anything, just this annoying humming sound that bothered my ears. I let out another blood-curdling scream, one between every breath. I crawled as far as I could to get as much distance as I could, but the bars on my crib stopped me and I was too afraid. I was cornered. I heard rumbling of something coming up the stairs out there in the hallway. Mimamai. It was still there. I saw this thing clear as day, and I will never, ever not believe that this wasn't real. It was real. I never needed light and people so bad in my life. I knew somehow this was bad. This was evil, and if it got to me, I was gone. Bad. Very bad. As soon as the sound of the doorknob twisted, it retracted back into the darkness, and this hand slowly disappeared. It EAS like slow motion. The lights came on, and it was the first full breath I took. That wasn't wailing, and I recall both my parents there. I also remember other people. I guess they had company and were having a good time. Oh well, they never knew what happened to me. Only that I was crying hysterically and pointing at their closet emphatically and wouldn't stop. I also wouldn't stay in that room. I clutched onto my father. I do remember that. I wouldn't let go. I recall them giving each other a look unbeknownst to their friends, and I know this sounds unbelievable, but I knew they got it. They knew something was off. They took me downstairs, and I remember being in the living room with them, and them laying me on the couch. It's a blur after that, but this happened to me, and it was so traumatic that after all these years I can still recount every single detail. I was no more than 3 years old. How is this possible? I remember feeling the chill of the glass and the coolness when my tiny arm reached behind me. When I was attempting to move backwards in my crib. I know evil exists. I have more experiences, but perhaps another time. I am grateful, though. Grateful my mother was a very spiritual woman. When my mother had a feeling, or a dream, you listened. My father would never speak of such things, but when my mom said something, he paid attention and always listened. He didn't mess with her. He was smart that way. She was a special lady. Her sixth sense was uncanny. She never shrugged off something if something happened to me. In fact, most of the time, she'd react before I could even say anything. I know what I saw was real. I'm 55 years old now, and I still can describe it perfectly. Story 4, Weird Dog by Reddit user Maleficent, put 919. So I don't know who go to about this, but something weird happened yesterday. We were on a road where skinwalkers are very common. Me and my friends were driving down that road, and out of nowhere a gray dog walks out of the roads and stands in the middle of the road. We honked it thinking it would move because most dogs move, you know, but it didn't. It made eye contact with me, and its eyes switched from a red to a normal color. I thought I was seeing things. Ever since I made eye contact with, I have felt sick to my stomach. When we tried to drive around the dog because it wouldn't move, it started to jump on car trying to look in the window. So we speed up, and it chased. After a minute or two, it just stopped and started at us and went back in the woods. I don't know if this is something supernatural or just a coincidence. If someone has any ideas, please let me know. Interested in more content? Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like this video.